Kia ora and welcome to our webinar, Residential Property, Buying and Selling Property, hosted by Godfreys Law. My name is Cameron and I'm going to be your host for today. And we have got a lawyer, a legal secretary and a mortgage broker here to answer your questions and provide the state of the nation. What on earth is happening as we're going through this COVID-19 crisis? So before I hand it over to them to introduce themselves and what's going on, please, if you've got a specific question that you'd like answered, use the Q&A function. You can submit those questions and we'll answer them anonymously. So first, I'd like to hand it over to our panel to introduce themselves and tell us a wee bit more. So please, shall we start off with Joyce?
Hi there everyone, my name's Joyce. I'm a solicitor at Godfreys Law. I've been practicing there for about a year and a half, primarily in conveyancing, and it is definitely an interesting time to be working in conveyancing at the moment.
And Kymberlee?
Hey everyone, I'm Kymberlee. I'm a legal executive and I've been with Godfreys Law for the last year and a half, and I've been practicing as a legal executive for the last 13 years. And that's me. I'll hand it over to Brent.
Hi everyone, I'm Brent Findlay, and yes, I'm a mortgage advisor. We've been in business for about 5 years now, and all up been in finance or lending for coming up 10. So yeah, these are interesting times, and yeah, sort of, you know, it's a bit of a mission navigating it the way through things at the moment, but hopefully this might help.
Fantastic. Now, as much as we want to answer your questions and give you advice, there are disclaimers that we have to provide. So if you could go ahead, please.
Yeah, so just to let you know, this is very kind of general information that I'll be giving. Everyone's situation is unique and very specific to what is happening in their lives. So if you want more specific information, please feel free to contact me or Kymberlee, or really anyone at the team at Godfreys who can help out. But what we're talking about today is very generalized.
And Brent, from your point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to echo that, I mean, obviously what I'll be covering is general in nature, so very much not specific to individual and personal situations. But if you did want some clarity around or want some more specific advice, then definitely get in touch.
Great, thanks very much. Now, the lockdown alert level 4 notice came upon us very quickly. There wasn't a whole lot of time to prepare, and there will have been people who had settlement dates to occur either on that day or in the weeks following now while we're in that lockdown period. So if that was somebody, if they were due to settle on a property and the settlement date was now while we're in the lockdown period, what do they do? What options do they have?
Contact your solicitor, first of all, to find out where you stand. We're being encouraged by the New Zealand Law Society property section to negotiate, be reasonable, compromise. And it's about talking to all the parties between yourselves, with your agent, with the other solicitor, with your solicitor, and working out what is going to work best for everybody. If you cannot settle, if you cannot physically move house, and if that's what your settlement is about, obviously if it's bare land or you're buying a vacant property that you're actually not moving into, or you're buying a property with a tenant already in place, then those settlements can go ahead as planned. So talk to your solicitor.
Just to follow up on what Kymberlee was saying, we've received information from the property section of the Law Society that around 6,000 settlements have been affected that were supposed to occur during the lockdown. So it is something that is affecting a lot of people, and they are really encouraging lawyers to communicate as much as possible, as Kymberlee said, and to cooperate and compromise as much as possible. Basically, everyone's in this situation and it's not anyone's fault. So it's really trying to figure out the most practical solutions going ahead for everyone.
Yeah, and maybe just to sort of echo that from the finance point of view, that we've had a lot of settlements go on hold, and I think clear communication between A, your lender, and B, your solicitor has been the best way to get through this and put a plan in place. The banks are being really, really supportive across the board. So, I've just sort of reading up recently that a number of banks have announced that they're actually, because some people have locked in loan structures, so some banks are actually not charging fees around breaking some of those structures so that they can either renegotiate and go on to lower rates, or even, maybe just look to change the settlement date when it's pushed out further than what they can hold the existing structure in place for. So communicate's probably the best thing from our end to the lender and with your solicitor.
Now, just something you touched on quickly, Kymberlee, was that some settlements are able to go ahead with this time. So what are the guidelines there? What can go ahead and what can't?
There's settlements like if you're purchasing or selling bare land, obviously there's no people moving on the day. They're not going to go and camp in a tent or anything like that on the bare piece of land. So those are able to still go ahead, because the reason for the lockdown is to prevent people moving about, and that's what it's about. So that's why the settlements are deferred, is we don't want to try and make people break the lockdown, because they're saying, well, I need to move because I've just purchased this place, my tenancy has run out, I've got to go. So that's why we're saying defer your settlements. But in the places that, like say, if there's a tenant in place and isn't going anywhere, then obviously that settlement can still go ahead between the vendor and the purchaser, because there's no people moving.
Anything else to add?
Joyce?
Not too much really, but I would say is a lot of our processes can be done remotely. So we can sign documents remotely. The Law Society and the various regulatory bodies around that have relaxed standards and released guidelines to allow us to do things digitally. All the money stuff transfers remotely. So really, on these settlements that don't require physical contact between people or physically checking properties or physically moving anyone, that can be done entirely remotely, and there's no reason for them not to go ahead.
Yeah, and just from our end as well, we have scenarios where clients were midway through refinancing from one bank to another for whatever reason, and also topping up on existing lending. We've had communications to suggest that there's no reason why that can't happen, providing everyone is okay with it.
Oh, absolutely. That would just be so much easier, just to, instead of adding stress by not allowing that to happen, just getting on with it. As Joyce said, we've got all the tools at hand now to get documents signed remotely. We can get them to the banks. There's nothing physical about a refinance in that aspect.
Yep.
Picking up on another thing, when I bought my first house, there was so many documents to sign and initial, and some of them had to be witnessed to prove that it was me. So for this point, if it's not able to be done electronically, what can you do and who can act as a witness? And then I guess we'll go into electronically, what do you need, what needs to be in place and what do you need to do?
The Auckland District Law Society has been really good in setting up kind of new system to allow us to track things electronically in the first instance. So what it is allowing you to sign online, even if you don't have something like Adobe, and it tracks who's involved in the meeting. And what that does is keeps kind of a secondary log beyond someone witnessing documents to prove who was at that meeting and who signed those documents. So that's been really good. And in terms of some practical guidance, we have Zoom or Skype meetings with clients where we're required to verify identities. We're trying to get as much as possible. So passports and birth certificates and driver's license, everyone's putting them up to the screen and screenshotting them. So on those ones, yeah, we can really proceed as much as normal so long as people have the means to have the video chats.
And what if they don't, for example? So am I able to, say, put the documents in my next door neighbour's letterbox so that we're protecting our bubbles, have him sign them and then collect them? Is that at all a possibility?
It could be.
Yeah. Some documents require specific people witnessing, so trusted people like lawyers or justices of the peace. So in that instance, your neighbour would have to be the correct person, and we're still trying to encourage people to follow the government guidelines in terms of social distancing. So maybe they could see you sign a document from 2 meters away, but is that really the best form of witnessing? Might not be.
Just had a question being submitted by a viewer. Thank you very much. And if you've got a question as well, you can head to the Q&A section and submit your question in there. And this person asks, they were looking to upgrade, they were looking at a bigger house, and they were looking at selling and purchasing a new house just before the lockdown. Realistically, when would be the best to continue looking after the lockdown is lifted? Would it be best to give it a bit of time before we look into selling or buying?
I think you can still keep looking now, like looking online. A lot of the agents have a lot of the documents available that tell you about the property. They have the council limb report. They might have even had a building inspection completed, so you get an idea about the property. If you're in Christchurch, they'll make the EQC scope of works information available to purchasers. They usually have titles and other information about the property so that you can look at it. You can send it to your lawyer for reviewing, and if you really like it and wanted to enter into a contract, then you could still do that, and you just add conditions that give you time to complete your due diligence after the lockdown has come off, and you just make sure your conditions have the appropriate wording in the clauses, and your solicitor can help you do that as well.
Yeah, Brent, from a financial point of view, is there any benefit to waiting for things to settle down, or as soon as you can move, should you move?
I think once you have a little bit of clarity around, obviously people have been speaking to their employers, and employers have been hopefully been really clear around speaking to employees around what income is going to be like. So if you're not impacted at this stage, then yeah, there's no reason why you shouldn't just keep punching forward. Like, bank lending criteria really hasn't fundamentally changed at this stage. If you know that you or have dropped down to 80%, maybe we can run the numbers on that. I think it's just important, again, it's case by case, but find out what your capacity is and get an understanding around your numbers. There's no harm in still doing that, especially when you've got a bit of time in your hands.
I agree.
Just returning back to that issue of settlements due to occur during the lockdown period, normally, and in a non-pandemic time, if you're not able to settle or if there is a breach of contract, then there are penalties that may occur. What is happening with those kinds of penalties at this during these extraordinary times?
Yeah, so agreements don't really envisage what is going to happen when absolutely no one can settle. They have penalties in place. For example, if vendors don't move out and they can't settle for like a normal settlement, that's what agreements are designed to deal with. So in this case, the property section of the Law Society have advised what we do is defer settlements where possible, and to make it so that neither party can claim penalties on the other one. Again, this is looking to be kind to everyone, and really it's no one's fault that they can't settle. So it's not unfairly punishing someone because they can't settle, because lots of people can't settle.
And let's be reasonable. That's what they keep saying. Be reasonable, compromise and negotiate. Because really, at the end of the day, nobody wants to be charging penalties.
Yeah, good point. And I guess this is again to echo a point already made, that if you are talking with your bank, you're talking with your lawyer, you're talking with your lender or your mortgage broker or whoever's helping you there, I guess this is a situation where the more open communication is, the better it is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. Okay, we've had a question come through around the Anti-Money Laundering Act, or AML. Perhaps before we dive into the question, Kymberlee, would you be able to just run us briefly what the AML Act is all about, and then we'll go into how you can satisfy those criteria and those conditions when you can't meet face-to-face.
Okay, well, basically, the anti-money laundering and countering financing of terrorism was set up to prevent money laundering throughout our country. And obviously, property, buying and selling of property is a really good money laundering transaction. So these days, you must, solicitors must be able to verify a person's identity, their connection to the property, and where the funding's coming from. And where the funding's coming from is a big one. If it's coming from overseas, you have to do a lot more investigation. You have to find out where the money is actually coming from. With New Zealanders from New Zealand buying, then obviously you can track the funding easily, because most people are using their KiwiSaver, Homestart grant subsidies, and they're getting a mortgage from the bank. So you're able to show where the funds are coming from and the history of the funds to show that it's not money laundering. And you also have to identify the clients, and you also have to verify that the residential address that they say they're currently living at is true and correct. And you do that by having your clients come in and bring with them their passport, which is the best one, a current passport, or if their passport's expired, they can bring in a passport, driver's license, firearms license, and also back it up with a birth certificate, marriage certificate, those kind of documents. Passport is the best form of identification verification, because the government will only put the actual name that is on your birth certificate. So you can't vary it in any way, shape and form unless you've done it legally. Driver's licenses and other photo ID, you can pretty much pick and choose your name, spelling of your name, anything the way you want it to be on that ID, which is why we always back up, ask that you provide two forms of identification when you're only providing a driver's license as the photo identification. Utility bills, such as insurance premiums, mobile accounts, power accounts, bank statements, they all show your full name and address, and we use those for verification of your address. And rates notices for the vendors, they must supply a current rates notice showing their connection to the property that they're selling.
Great. So under normal circumstances, they would bring the ID, they would bring the forms and the letters or the what have you, they bring it into you so that you can cite it and verify it, and you've got the fancy stamp that, you know, that says that you've witnessed it. Given that we're not meant to be breaking our bubble and we've got to keep these distances, Joyce, what can somebody do to still provide all of the evidence that they need while staying safe within the bubble and not interacting face to face?
Yeah, so this is another area where requirements have been relaxed somewhat to what they normally would be, to allow for video chat verification. So what we're doing is getting clients up on Zoom or Skype, getting them to show us their ID, so passport, driver's license, and at this stage we're really trying to get more IDs. So if you have both passport and driver's license on you, we're wanting that. If you have 2 or more forms proof of address, we're wanting that. There is a slightly higher risk over video conference, basically, that things can get a little bit lost. So what we're trying to do is our best to verify things, and really after we've verified it online, we just make very detailed notes, basically setting out how we've met, how we know them, and then ideally you'd meet these people in the future just to be like, hey, I've met them, I know they look like their IDs and they are who they say they are.
Great. Brent, we've seen, well, those of us following the stock market and the economy, there's been a lot of up and down, and some people have found that their Kiwi savers have been impacted by all the economic fluctuations to do with the virus. So can you tell us what's happening with KiwiSaver and what's happening with people who perhaps thought they had a certain amount and that amount is different to what they thought they had?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're kind of in the headspace of using your KiwiSaver for a deposit or forming part of your deposit, or in some cases all of the deposit for a home, then you'll be feeling quite nervous about it right now, given that it has dropped. Obviously, this is sort of generic and general and kind of wide, not advice specific to KiwiSaver, but it's very much, I would be still talking to someone around what your position is now, so that you have a good understanding of whether you can still achieve what you want to achieve. So what I'm meaning by that, some people, yeah, their KiwiSaver has dropped $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that they can't go on and achieve what they want to do. Lots of sort of communication and stuff in the media around, do you change the way that your KiwiSaver is being managed? Well, I would seek very, very careful and clear advice before doing that. In particular, if you are going to be using it very soon, or even in the future, I just think you should just seek advice on your KiwiSaver fund and the way it's been managed.
And do you think that banks are going to be a bit more conservative around who...
Probably. Sorry, is the call came in. You go, Cam, sorry.
Oh, no, Brent, I was just saying, do you think banks are going to be a bit more conservative about who they lend to and how much they're willing to lend?
Look, yes, in general. There are some industries that have been significantly impacted and relatively overnight. So tourism, hospitality, retail, sort of, they've been hit really hard. But it is, again, still case-by-case scenario, and it will just come down to the lending criteria hasn't fundamentally changed. So if we can verify income and it still, I guess, meets the criteria that banks have, then you'll still get a pre-approval. They will be asking questions around maybe the short to medium term impact on income as well. So if there's uncertainty there, that might have a bearing on what sort of result you'll get. But I think if you're in the frame of mind of you're wanting to explore buying a home, whether it's your first or an investment, or you're selling and buying, then I think it's just good to get sound advice.
Yeah. Now, on that, you mentioned the number of the industries that have been hit particularly hard, and there will have been people who had sound, secure jobs, they've been pre-approved, lending's all sorted, and now find themselves redundant. So what happens to lending, or their ability to purchase, if they have been pre-approved and they had the finance all sorted and now all of a sudden find themselves without a job?
Yeah, I think in every situation, whether you have gone unconditional or whether you are working through to becoming unconditional, or you're just pre-approved, so conditionally approved, I think you should front foot it. That's the key piece of advice that I could give, that you should speak to your broker, your bank directly, to find out what your options are, and just get on the front foot with that, so that there's hey, there are things and the banks can do. The banks want to help through this as well. They understand this is unprecedented. You know, it's you cannot plan for this. So I would, in every situation, front foot and speak directly to the lender or your advisor.
That's great. Thanks, Brent. We've had another question come in. My purchase contract has a sunset date in it because the contract includes a house being built. If the lockdown goes on for longer than 4 weeks, this date may come up much sooner than we intended. What should we do?
From a bank point of view, lending point of view?
I'll throw that one open to the panel. Anybody who can answer that.
Okay, well, from the conveyancing side of it, that's once again, we would be negotiating with the other party. Obviously, if the house is being built, it can't be built right now anyway, so that might actually push the date further out than bringing it forward. So, and usually in a sunset clause, there is room for the parties to negotiate, not just to terminate completely if the sunset clause date is reached and the job hasn't been finished. I mean, let's face it, the vendor still wants to build the house and sell it to the purchasers, and the purchasers still want to buy it. So it's about talking, working together.
Great. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I think probably the risks that we have, the biggest risk in lending at the moment is where you might have gone unconditional on something and you could be 6-12 months away from settling, so actually requiring the bank to pay the remainder of the balance. That, again, I'm just going to probably keep repeating myself, but I would be speaking directly to the lender or your advisor around making sure that communication is high around this. So, yeah, because we don't quite know what an application has been approved based on income, say for that they were receiving a month ago. That may be very different in 3, 4, 6 months' time. So anything sort of future dated with sort of a 3, 6, 12 month kind of timeline on it, I think lots of communication with your lender.
Now, assume, hopefully, at the end of this 4 weeks, hopefully we then move down to alert level 3, which will give us a bit more flexibility in terms of movement and association and all of those kinds of things. If, let's say, you were kind of waiting on the settlement period, are you able to, once the restrictions have moved down from alert level 4 to 3, are you then able to settle on your property and move into your new home at that time?
It's quite a difficult question, and is probably quite a developing area for us. We're getting constant updates from the Law Society, kind of guiding us about what we should and shouldn't be kind of advising during this time. It seems that at this stage, during level 3, they're thinking that people can move, but it's really thinking about practical questions like, do you need movers, and are they accessible during level 3, or can you move yourself, and can you do a pre-settlement inspection of the property during that time? And maybe one party can move and they're good to go, but the other party can't. So again, you're looking at a situation of what is kind of a compromise that we can reach.
Yeah, it's all about the compromise. All about the negotiation, working together.
I guess from a bank's point of view, branches are limited at this stage as well. So part of that, I think from what I can gather, most of the banks are working furiously behind the scenes to get to the point where they can onboard new clients online primarily. At this stage, some banks can't do that. So I do know, as at today, some banks can't take on new clients until the communication's been put out to us, until it goes to level 2.
Perfect. Hey, thank you, everybody, so much for your time and for answering those questions. Thank you to you watching and for those of you who have submitted questions to us as well. Hopefully they were useful, but in all this, if you've taken one thing away, it's that communication is important and you really do need to speak specialist advice for your situation. So Brent, moving forward, what's the best way for somebody can get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, more than happy for anyone to call any time. So we've sort of opened our doors. We're fully online and have been for at least a couple of weeks now. So that's, I guess, we're part of the sort of financial essential service. So call me on my phone or email, or you can jump on our website, which is mortgagemates.co. And see a little bit about who we are, what we do, but that way you can kind of, you can actually book in a call or book in a meeting with me as well. So look, I'd love to chat and yeah, good luck.
And Kymberlee, for those of you who've got, I imagine you'll be working with a number of clients who have been in some of the boats that we've talked about today. How can people get in touch with you and with Joyce and the team at Godfreys Law?
Okay, so they can still phone our office number 03 366 7469 because we have got someone answering our phones and their messages will be sent to us and we then either ring you or we will email you. So, and you can also contact us at our email addresses and via the website, and we will get back to you right away.
Great. Any final words to sum up the situation around buying and selling property during the time of COVID-19?
No, just stay healthy, stay in your bubble, be alive at the end of this, and then come see us.
Yeah, but to echo Kymberlee's sentiments, follow all of the health and safety instructions. Don't go insane while you're stuck at home. Really looking forward to meeting some people in real life after this.
I reckon. And don't kill your animals.
And I think from my point of view, it's actually been really nice to kind of we've got a bit more time on our hands to actually, obviously not looking at your budget 24/7, but it's a good chance to actually look at your financial position and spend a bit of time reviewing it. And if you need a hand doing that, I'm more than happy to help. We've gone through it ourselves. So it's a really good chance if you have a business to work on your business rather than in it continuously. And likewise, just knowing your financial position is something that can easily get overlooked. So use your time well.
Hey, thank you so much, guys, for being part of it. Thank you for joining us. We're going to make this webinar available so that if there was something that you missed, or if there was an answer that you think that your friend, neighbor, colleague should know about, you'll be able to share it with them. Thank you so much for joining us. And from the team at Godfreys Law, we've got a couple of other webinars coming up on employment law and around commercial properties. So if those would interest you, head to our Facebook page, Godfreys Law on Facebook, and you can find out more about those and register for those webinars if you think they'll be interesting. And from us, thanks so much. Stay safe. Have a great day. Ka kite.
Ka kite.